The Maserati shouldn't have been in the driveway. Not today. Not 3 days early. Marco Valentino sat behind the wheel, Rome's autumn rain hammering the windshield like bullets, and felt ice crystallize in his veins. Every light in the villa blazed gold against the Tuscan hills, a beacon, a warning, a trap. Isabella had said she'd be in Milan until Thursday, had kissed his jaw before he left for Budapest, whispered Ti amo against his skin, had lied. He took the marble stairs 2 at a time, his heartbeat a war drum in his chest, drowning out reason, drowning out caution. The heavy oak doors opened silently, oiled hinges, no warning of his arrival, and the smell hit him first. Not Isabella's jasmine perfume, not the Barolo they'd opened last week. Something clinical, sterile, wrong, like formaldehyde wearing Chanel No. 5 as camouflage. Rage flooded his system so fast the world tilted red. His hand found the Beretta in his shoulder holster without thought. 2 shots, center mass, problem solved. He'd buried bodies before, would do it again. Through the crack in the bedroom doors, he saw them. Isabella stood before his wall safe, the one hidden behind the Caravaggio, the one only 4 people knew existed. The painting itself was worth 3 million euros. What it concealed was priceless. Her dark hair was pulled back severe and businesslike, nothing like the soft waves she wore in bed. She wore surgical gloves, the kind that leave no prints, no DNA, no evidence. Her movements were precise, methodical, professional. Beside her stood Dante, his head of security, the man who'd taken a knife for him in Naples when the Albanians made their move, the man he'd trusted with his life, his secrets, his empire. 6'4" of solid muscle, former Gruppo di Intervento Speciale, the kind of man who could kill with his bare hands or crack a safe with a bobby pin. Right now, he held something in those gloved hands, something that made Marco's blood run cold, a shirt. White, cotton turned brown with old blood. Marco's blood and someone else's. The shirt from the Russo hit 4 years ago, the one that had started this nightmare. The shirt he'd burned, the shirt that should have been ash scattered across the Mediterranean. But here it was, being sealed into an evidence bag with the precision of federal training. DNA match confirmed, Isabella said, her voice sharp and cold. Nothing like the warm Milanese accent she used in bed. This was someone else, a stranger wearing his fiancée's face. First-degree murder, death penalty. He dies by lethal injection, and we walk away with everything. Dante's laugh was low and hungry. Timeline? 4 weeks. The insurance policy updates January 1st. Double indemnity. She held the bag up to the light like a jeweler examining a diamond. 80 million euros plus the legitimate businesses plus the offshore accounts. By Valentine's Day, we'll be in the Seychelles, and the serpent will be a corpse on ice. The world narrowed to a pinpoint. Marco's finger found the trigger. 1 step forward. 2 shots. Paint these walls with their blood. Then a hand clamped over his mouth from behind. Firm. Decisive. Cutting off the breath he'd been about to take. A body slammed into his back with terrifying strength, forcing him against the corridor wall, hard enough that his shoulder hit imported marble with a dull thud that should have alerted everyone but didn't. Professional. This was professional. Marco's training kicked in instantly. Twist left, elbow to the solar plexus, snap the wrist. 3 moves, 2 seconds. He'd done it when the Russians tried to grab him in Moscow, when the Colombians thought they could ransom him. But something stopped him. A scent. Cocoa butter and something floral he couldn't name. Feminine. And a voice, urgent and low against his ear. Stay quiet, Mr. Valentino. Lucia, his assistant. The woman who organized his calendar and answered his phones. The woman who'd worked for him for 7 months and who he'd barely noticed twice. But the grip pinning him wasn't a secretary's grip. When he turned his head slightly, the eyes staring back weren't the eyes of someone who filed paperwork. They were wide, terrified even, but underneath the fear was something else, something cold and calculated, something that knew death intimately. She wasn't looking at him. She was looking down. Lucia's free hand moved slowly, pointing at the floor in front of the bedroom door. Marco followed her gaze, saw nothing, just imported Italian tile. But Lucia's eyes were different. Her pupils dilated strangely, catching the dim light. Contact lenses, special ones. She leaned closer, lips brushing his ear, and whispered 3 words that stopped his heart. "It's a trap." Then she tilted her head, and he understood. She could see something he couldn't, something invisible. And from the way her body tensed against his, he knew exactly what it was. Explosives. Dante rigged the door. She breathed, voice so quiet he had to strain to hear. Silent alarm connected directly to the federal task force. You step in, they raid before you can destroy evidence. Marco's rage crystallized into ice. He was trapped between the woman plotting his murder and the woman holding him against a wall to save his life. Lucia released his mouth slowly, pressed a finger to her lips, jerked her head toward the hallway. They needed to move. Now. They moved like ghosts, Lucia guiding him backward with spatial awareness that spoke of extensive training. Her hand stayed on his chest, right over his heart, feeling his pulse, monitoring his control. They slipped into his study, the East Wing room where he built empires on paper and blood. Only when the heavy door clicked shut did she release him. Marco spun, gun leveling at her chest. "Talk, and this better be good, or you're fired. Permanently." Lucia met his eyes without flinching. She stood there in her simple black dress, the uniform of his household staff, with a gun pointed at her heart. And she didn't beg, didn't plead, didn't cry. She just looked at him with those dark, knowing eyes. And for the first time in 7 months, Marco actually saw her. She was young, mid-20s maybe. Her brown skin caught the low light of his desk lamp, smooth except for a small scar near her left temple. Her hair was pulled back in a simple bun, but her hands bore the calluses of someone who'd spent years training with weapons. And her posture was that of a fighter, balanced, ready. "Your fiancé isn't just cheating on you, Mr. Valentino," Lucia said, dropping the Italian accent she used at the office. Her voice reverted to something clipped, precise. "She's planning to kill you, and I can prove it. Welcome back, my fierce hearts and midnight dreamers. Before we dive deeper, hit that subscribe button, smash that like, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. New York, London, Lagos, Tokyo, every click, every comment, every bit of love you leave helps us keep unraveling these dangerous love stories together. So find your quiet corner, dim those lights, and let's descend into betrayal and fire. Let's begin." Marco's finger stayed on the trigger. "Explain. Everything now." Lucia took a slow breath. 3 weeks ago, I was cleaning your upstairs office, the one Mrs. Isabella thinks is locked. I heard voices through the heating vent, her voice and a man's, discussing your murder. "Dante?" "Yes, but they're not lovers, Mr. Valentino. They're partners, federal partners." The word hit Marco like a fist. Federal. "She's not Isabella Romano, daughter of Senator Carlo Romano," Lucia continued, voice steady despite the gun. "She's Agent Isabella Marchetti, Interpol. They call her the Black Widow. She seduces high-value targets, manufactures evidence, ensures they die in custody, while she seizes their assets through civil forfeiture. You're not her first. You're her 6th. Marco's blood turned to ice water. "You're lying." "I wish I was." Lucia reached slowly into her pocket, making sure he saw every movement, and pulled out a small USB drive. "I recorded everything. 2 weeks of conversations, their plans, their timeline, everyone on their payroll, including the judge who'll deny your bail and the warden who'll ensure you don't survive protective custody." The gun wavered. "Why? Why tell me? Why save me?" Lucia's expression softened. "Because I watched you for 7 months, Mr. Valentino. I saw how you donate to children's hospitals under fake names, How you paid for your driver's daughter's wedding when he was too proud to ask. How you visit your mother's grave every Sunday, even exhausted. She paused. I decided you were worth saving. Before Marco could respond, a sound made them both freeze. Sirens, multiple vehicles, coming fast. Lucia moved to the window. SWAT team, Interpol, they're early. Early for what? For the raid. They were supposed to wait until they caught you with the evidence. But Dante triggered the silent alarm. He wants SWAT to breach while you're confused. Hopes you'll get shot in the crossfire. She turned back, fear clear in her eyes now. We need to leave, right now. Lucia killed the desk lamp, plunging them into darkness. Through the window, Marco could see blue and red lights reflecting off the Tuscan hills, painting the night in violent colors. They had maybe 90 seconds before the building was locked down. The elevator's compromised, Lucia said, already moving toward the bookshelf on the east wall. Dante controls security. He'll trap us like rats. Then how? She pressed something, a book maybe, and a panel slid open, revealing a narrow maintenance shaft, dropping into darkness. Every luxury villa has emergency access for repairs, Lucia said, voice calm despite approaching sirens. Fire codes, earthquake safety. This connects to the old wine cellar system on the south side. Only route Dante can't. Monitor, installed before digital security. Marco stared at the opening. You're insane. You're dead if you stay. She was already pulling off her heels, reaching under her dress to withdraw something that made Marco's blood run cold. A subcompact Glock 19 from a thigh holster. She threaded on a suppressor in one smooth motion. Not a gun you picked up at a shop. The kind that spoke of black market connections and professional violence. I scouted every escape route within a week of starting work here, she said. This is our only option. The sirens were maybe 20 seconds out now. Marco could hear boots in the stairwell. Heavy tactical boots on marble. He made his decision in less than a second. Lead the way. Lucia slipped into the shaft first, disappearing into darkness. Marco followed, shoulders barely fitting, his expensive suit jacket catching on rough concrete. The space was cramped, suffocating, and absolutely dark. Darkness that pressed against his eyes like a physical weight. There's a ladder, Lucia whispered from below. Rungs welded to the side every 18 inches. Follow my breathing. Don't use your phone light. It'll flare in their night vision like a beacon. Marco descended in complete darkness, hands finding cold metal rungs by feel. His dress shoes, Italian leather, custom made, worth more than most people's monthly salary, slipped on the metal, forcing him to grip harder. Below him, he could hear Lucia's controlled breathing, could smell that scent again, cocoa butter and flowers mixed with concrete dust. They climbed down for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes. The metal rungs bit into Marco's hands, drawing blood he couldn't see but could feel. Warm, slick, making his grip uncertain. Above, he could hear muffled sounds through concrete and steel. Doors being kicked in. Commands shouted in professional monotones. Interpol, search warrant, clear, clear. Stop, Lucia whispered after maybe 10 floors. This level connects to the wine cellar. We transfer horizontally about 2 meters, then drop another 3 floors. Transfer how? Her hand found his ankle in darkness, fingers wrapping around his leg with surprising strength, intimate despite circumstances. She guided his foot to a different surface, rougher, wider. Feel that ledge? Maintenance platform from the 70s renovation. We shimmy across, then drop into the passage itself. It was insane, reckless, but Marco was out of options, and the woman below him had saved his life twice in 10 minutes. He followed her instructions, body pressed flat against cold concrete as he moved horizontally, hands finding purchase on rough surfaces. Then he felt it, the opening of the passage, wider than the maintenance shaft, with smooth stone sides designed for friction-free movement. We're going to slide, Lucia said, voice still calm. Keep your arms and legs out to control speed. Feet first, back against stone. Too fast, you break your legs. Too slow, you burn through skin. Find the balance. Comforting. I try. There was almost amusement in her voice. Count to 3 after I drop, then follow. And she was gone. Marco counted. 1, 2, 3, and followed. The slide was terrifying. His back hit stone with force that knocked air from his lungs. Then he was sliding, accelerating, the sides rushing past in absolute darkness. He spread his arms and legs, feeling friction burn through his suit, slowing but not stopping descent. He hit bottom hard, knees buckling, body rolling instinctively. He landed in something wet and foul-smelling. Wine barrels, old rotting wine barrels. Lucia's hand found his arm, pulling him up. Move, 30 seconds before they seal the grounds. They climbed out, and Marco got his first good look at her since the study. Her dress was torn. Her arms were bleeding from the slide, but her eyes were clear, focused, already scanning for their next move. There, she pointed to a gray sedan 3, rows over in the underground garage. Guest parking. Dante never checks it. Stolen plates, clean registration. I prepped it last week. You prepped an escape vehicle? I prepped for everything, Mr. Valentino. That's why you're still alive. They ran. Lucia didn't fumble with keys. She had them ready, pressed the fob, and the sedan's lights blinked once. They were inside and moving before Marco's brain caught up. Lucia drove with steady hands, eyes checking mirrors constantly. She took the service exit, the one delivery trucks used, feeding onto a side road away from the main entrance, where SWAT was setting perimeter. They were 6 blocks away when Marco heard it, a muffled boom that rattled windows. He turned, looking back, saw orange light flash from the villa's direction. They breached the bedroom, Lucia said quietly. Probably used a battering ram. If she hadn't stopped him, Marco would be in federal custody right now. Or dead. His hands were shaking. He clenched them into fists, willing the tremor to stop. He'd survived assassination attempts, walked into firefights, stared down gun barrels without flinching. But this calculated betrayal by the woman he'd planned to marry, by the man he'd trusted with his life, this was different. Where are we going? He asked, voice rougher than intended. Florence, I have a safe house. You have a safe house? Mr. Valentino, Lucia said, and there was almost amusement in her voice. You really need to start paying attention to people around you. She drove fast but not recklessly, taking surface streets, avoiding highways where they'd be visible to traffic cameras. Rain started as they crossed into Florence proper, sheets of water hammering the windshield, turning city lights into blurred streaks. Marco watched her drive, really watched her. The way her fingers gripped the wheel with exactly the right pressure. The way her eyes tracked every vehicle, every potential threat. The way she'd shifted the rearview mirror to cover her blind spot. Military-grade professional. Who are you? He asked quietly. Lucia's jaw tightened. She didn't answer immediately. Finally, she spoke. I wasn't hired by HR, Marco. The use of his first name sent a shock through him. She'd never called him anything but Mr. Valentino in 7 months. 7 months ago, she continued, voice careful, measured. I was sent by the 'Ndrangheta to put a bullet in your head. The words dropped like stones into still water. Marco's hand moved instinctively to his gun. Don't, Lucia said quietly, eyes flicking to him in the mirror. You shoot me, we crash, you die, and Isabella wins. His hand stayed on the grip. Give me one reason not to kill you the second we stop. Because I didn't do it. I was supposed to. Had the shot lined up 4 different times. But I didn't take it. Want to know why? Enlighten me. Because you're not what they told me you'd be. They said you were a monster, a serpent who poisoned everything he touched. But I watched you, Marco, for weeks, and I saw something different. What did you see? A man trying to build something real in a world that only understands destruction. The rain hammered harder. Lucia took an exit, diving into Florence's industrial district, where streetlights were sparse and buildings leaned into each other like drunk men. "The Ndrangheta thinks I'm still working the long con," she said. "But they got impatient and sent a freelancer 3 months ago. You found his body in an alley near Ponte Vecchio. You killed him and didn't even know it." Marco remembered. A tale he'd noticed, a confrontation in shadows. A man who'd drawn on him and died for it. "So, you're a dead woman walking," Marco said. "We both are." Lucia pulled into a narrow alley between abandoned warehouses and killed the engine. "Welcome to your new life, Mr. Valentino. Hope you enjoy poverty." The safe house was exactly what Marco expected. A dump, third-floor walk-up above a shuttered mechanic's shop. The kind of place where walls were thin and neighbors didn't ask questions. Lucia unlocked 3 deadbolts before pushing the door open. Inside was sparse but functional. A single room with a kitchenette, a bathroom visible through a partially open door, and a futon that had seen better days. But the windows had blackout curtains, and Marco noticed security camera feeds on a laptop in the corner. Professional paranoia. "First things first," Lucia said, wrinkling her nose. "You smell like rotting wine. Showers through that door. There's a towel and some clothes." Marco was about to speak when Lucia moved fast, on him in a heartbeat. One hand on his chest, the other reaching for his jacket. For a wild second, he thought she was attacking. Then he realized she was checking for wounds. "You're bleeding," she said, fingers finding tears in his suit where the slide had shredded fabric and skin. "Sit." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding all over my safe house. Sit." Command in her voice. The kind that didn't expect argument. Marco found himself sitting on the futon's edge while Lucia disappeared into the bathroom, returning with a military-grade first aid kit. She knelt in front of him, and for the first time, Marco was close enough to really see her. The scar near her temple was old, surgical. Her hands, as they worked his jacket off his shoulders, were steady despite everything they'd just survived. And her eyes, those dark, endless eyes, held secrets he was only beginning to understand. "This will sting," she warned, dousing cotton with antiseptic. It did, but Marco didn't flinch. He'd had worse. He watched her work instead. Watched her brow furrow in concentration. The way she bit her lower lip when focusing. Intimate details he'd never noticed before. "Your fiancée," Lucia said quietly, cleaning a cut on his shoulder, "isn't who you think she is." "You said that already." "I mean beyond the federal agent part." She paused, fingers gentle, against his skin despite the antiseptic burn. "She's done this before, multiple times. They call her the Black Widow in certain circles. She has a type, powerful men in organized crime. She seduces them, manufactures evidence, gets them locked up, seizes everything through civil forfeiture. 5 men in the last 15 years, all either dead or serving life in Supermax facilities." Marco's blood went cold. "How do you know all this?" Lucia's hands paused. "Because the Ndrangheta gave me her file. I've been their cleaner for 6 years. 7 months ago, they gave me my biggest target, you. They wanted me to know what I was walking into, who the major players were, the power structure." She resumed cleaning his wounds. "I recognized her methodology. Spent time doing research, found the pattern." "You were intelligence." "Something like that." She didn't elaborate, just reached for bandages, fingers brushing the serpent tattoo that curved around his shoulder. She traced it without thinking, and Marco felt that touch like electricity. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "In 7 months, why didn't you warn me?" Lucia met his eyes. Really met them, and what he saw there made his chest tight. "Because I needed proof," she said quietly. "And because I needed to know if you were worth saving. If you were the monster they said, or something else. And what did you decide?" Her thumb traced the edge of a bandage she'd just applied, the touch lingering. I decided monsters don't visit their mother's grave every Sunday. Don't pay for children's surgeries. Don't read Dante Alighieri at 3 in the morning when they think no one's watching. She'd been watching him, really watching, seeing things he'd thought were private. The realization should have made him angry. Instead, it made him feel seen in a way he hadn't felt in years. His hand covered hers, stopping her ministrations. Lucia? His phone rang. Not his primary phone. That was back at the villa, probably, being picked apart by forensics. This was his burner, the one only 3 people had the number to, his lieutenants, the Iron Guard. Marco pulled it out. Giovanni C., his second in command. Relief flooded through him. Someone was still alive. He moved to answer, but Lucia's hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. Don't. That's my second. Don't. Her grip was iron. Her eyes were wide with something like panic. Marco, don't answer that phone. Why not? Because Dante called a staff meeting 15 minutes ago. Your entire inner circle, the Iron Guard, your lieutenants, your drivers, your accountants, everyone. He told them you'd had a breakthrough on the Greco case and wanted to celebrate. Marco's stomach dropped. No. He used the company account to order a case of Sassicaia 85 and 3 vials of oleander extract. Your favorite wine isn't Sassicaia, Marco. It was oleander extract. Tasteless, odorless, mimics a heart attack perfectly. The phone kept ringing. They've been poisoned, Lucia whispered, voice shaking. All of them. If they aren't dead yet, they will be within the hour. Dante poisoned your entire command structure. And if that phone's ringing, it's because someone found the bodies, and Interpol wants to know where you are. Marco's hand started shaking. The phone rang 3 more times, then went silent. A moment later, a text. Boss, where are you? Everyone's down. Need immediate medical. Please respond. A trap. Had to be. But the alternative, that everyone he trusted, everyone who'd fought beside him, everyone who'd bled for his empire was dead. He couldn't breathe. The walls closed in. His men, his family, his empire, all gone in one calculated move. Lucia's hands framed his face, forcing him to look at her. Breathe, she commanded. Marco, breathe. In through your nose, out through your mouth. He did. Focused on her eyes, her voice, the warmth of her palms against his cheeks. Slowly, the panic receded. You have nothing, Lucia said, quietly. No army, no money, no home, no empire. Isabella's seizing your known assets. The villa, the clubs, the cars. Your properties are under federal lien. In the eyes of the law, you're a dead man walking. Then why am I still breathing? Because I'm not ready to let you die. The intensity in her voice hit him like a physical force. She meant it. This woman, this assassin sent to kill him, this secretary he'd barely noticed, had risked everything to keep him alive. What do I have left? Marco asked, voice rough. Lucia's hand slid from his face to his shoulders. You have me, and you have the one thing Isabella doesn't know about. What's that? She smiled, small and dangerous. The outside. Outside, rain lashed the windows. Inside, Marco felt something shift in his chest, something fundamental. The serpent was dead. The empire was ash, but from those ashes, something new was beginning to rise, and it looked like the woman kneeling in front of him with blood on her hands and fire in her eyes. They sat in silence for a long time. Lucia finished bandaging his wounds, while Marco tried to process the complete destruction of his life. Every few minutes his phone buzzed. Messages, calls, alerts, each one a reminder that somewhere Isabella and Dante were dismantling everything he'd built. You should eat, Lucia said finally, standing and moving to the kitchenette. You're running on adrenaline. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway? She pulled things from a small fridge. Bread, cheese, cold cuts, simple food, survival food. She assembled sandwiches with the same efficiency she had used for everything else. Lucia sat across from him on a folding chair, her own sandwich untouched. She'd changed into black tactical pants and a fitted tank top showing arms corded with lean muscle. No longer the secretary. Now she looked like what she really was, a weapon. "Tell me about the 'Ndrangheta," Marco said finally. Lucia's jaw tightened. For a moment he thought she wouldn't answer. Then she sighed. "I was recruited young, 19, fresh out of school in Calabria with no money and no prospects. They were expanding routes through southern Italy, wanted local recruits who wouldn't be missed." She paused. "A man approached me at a market, said he could give me a life, training, purpose. All I had to do was learn to kill people. And you agreed? I was 19 and stupid." Her laugh was bitter. "I thought I'd be a spy like in movies. Instead, I got 4 years of hell in training camps, learned 7 languages, learned to kill with anything from a sniper rifle to a soup spoon, learned to disappear into any crowd, any life, any identity." "How many?" Marco asked quietly. "How many what? How many people have you killed?" Lucia met his eyes. Didn't flinch. 18 confirmed. Maybe 4 or 5 more, where I wasn't sure if they died or just wished they had. 18. She said it like reciting a grocery list. But Marco could see the weight of it in her eyes. "Why didn't you kill me?" he asked. "I told you." "No, the real reason. Not the pretty story about visiting my mother's grave. The real reason you let me live." Lucia was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "Because you looked at me." "What?" "In 7 months of working for you, you looked at me exactly 4 times. Really looked. Not through me, not past me, at me, like I was a person instead of furniture." She stood abruptly, moving to the window, arms wrapped around herself. "First time was month 2. I brought you espresso wrong, sugar instead of straight. You could have fired me, could have yelled. Instead, you asked if I was okay, said I seemed distracted. No one in my entire life had ever asked me that." Marco remembered vaguely a morning when Lucia had looked unusually tired, shadows under her eyes. "Second time was month 4. You overheard me on the phone with my sister in Calabria. Heard me crying. You gave me the rest of the day off. Told me family was important. Slipped an extra 200 euros in my next paycheck. He remembered that too. Had thought nothing of it. Third time was month 6. You found me working late on your mother's death anniversary. You didn't say anything. Just set a cup of chamomile tea next to me. You remembered from months ago that I liked chamomile." Marco had forgotten he'd done that. Fourth time was 3 weeks ago. I stayed late filing. You were leaving and saw me still at my desk. You stopped, looked at me, really looked, and said, "Go home, Lucia. The paperwork will be here tomorrow. You won't be if you don't rest." Then you called me a car, waited until it arrived. Lucia turned to face him, and Marco found himself standing to meet her. They were close now, close enough that he could see the pulse jumping in her throat. "You asked why I didn't kill you?" Lucia whispered. "I didn't kill you because somewhere between the first cup of espresso and the last cup of tea, I fell in love with the man you were trying to become." The words hung between them like a lit fuse. Marco's hand came up without conscious thought, fingers brushing her cheek. She didn't pull away, just stood there, looking at him, with those dark eyes that held secrets and scars and something that might have been hope. "You don't know me," he said roughly. "I know you better than anyone. I know you take your espresso straight. Know you read Dante when you can't sleep. Know you have nightmares about your mother's death and wake calling for her. Know you alphabetize your books by author, but your weapons by caliber. Know you." He kissed her, or she kissed him. Later, neither would be sure who moved first, but suddenly his mouth was on hers. Her hands were in his hair, and they were pressed together with 7 months of unspoken tension. finally finding release. Lucia tasted like rain and determination. Her lips were soft, but her kiss was fierce, demanding, giving as good as she got. Marco's hands found her waist, pulling her closer, feeling the lean muscle of her body against his. She was strong, stronger than she looked. And when she pushed him back toward the futon, he let her. They fell together, her body covering his, her weight welcome and grounding. His hands found the hem of her tank top, slipped beneath to find warm skin and the ridge of scars, old wounds from a violent life. She gasped against his mouth when his fingers traced them, not from pain, but from something raw and vulnerable. Marco, she breathed, pulling back just enough to look at him. Her eyes were dark with want, but also with something like fear. We shouldn't. Why not? Because this is insane. Because 12 hours ago, you were engaged to someone else. Because I'm a killer sent to murder you. Because we're both dead anyway, Marco finished. He reached up, framing her face with his hands. Because everything I thought I knew was a lie. Because you saved my life. Because you're the only real thing I have left. Lucia's eyes closed. When they opened again, they were bright with unshed tears. This won't end well. Nothing in my life ever has. She laughed, a short, sharp sound that might have been a sob. Then she was kissing him again, deeper this time, her body moving against his with urgency that spoke of desperation and desire and defiance against a world that wanted them dead. They came together like a storm, fierce and consuming and necessary, in the cramped confines of a safe house that smelled like dust and rain. With the world hunting them and their pasts littered with bodies, they found something that felt almost like salvation. And when they finally broke apart, gasping and tangled in each other, Marco realized something fundamental had changed. Not just in his circumstances, but in him. The serpent had burned, and from the ashes, something new was rising. Something that looked like the woman in his arms who'd killed for money but chose to save for love. Marco woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of typing. For a disorienting moment, he forgot where he was. Expected to see the frescoed ceiling and Palladian windows of his villa. Instead, he saw water-stained walls and a woman at a laptop, silhouetted against gray morning light. Lucia, still wearing his shirt, her hair loose around her shoulders. Beautiful in a way he'd never let himself notice before. She glanced up, catching him watching. A small smile touched her lips. Coffee's on the counter, straight, no sugar. She remembered. Of course she did. Lucia remembered everything. Marco stood, wincing as his body reminded him of their escape and everything after. He found the coffee, cheap instant, nothing like what he was used to, and drank it anyway. "What are you working on?" he asked, moving to stand behind her. The laptop screen was filled with code, complex encryption strings, what looked like financial records. Lucia's fingers flew over keys with speed that spoke of extensive training. "I'm accessing your black ledger," she said casually. Marco's blood went cold. The black ledger, the complete digital record of every transaction, every operation, every dirty secret of his empire, the thing that could buy him immunity or put him in prison for life. "That's encrypted," he said carefully. "Military-grade encryption. Even with passwords, which you don't have. It would take months to crack." Lucia smiled. "I don't need to crack it. I already have full access." "That's impossible. The only copies are on drives in my personal safe and my attorney's office in Switzerland." "I swapped the drive in your safe, remotely wiped the Swiss server." She pulled up a new window, and Marco's breath caught. It was his ledger, the real one, complete and unedited. Every name, every transaction, every kill order from the last 20 years. "How?" "I didn't just file your paperwork for 7 months, Marco. I memorized it. Every password, every encryption sequence, every backup protocol. 2 weeks ago, When you left for that meeting in Munich, I spent 48 hours copying your drives and swapping them with dummies. Marco stared at her. You what? I swapped your drives. Lucia stood, turning to face him. The ones in your safe? Filled with 20 terabytes of very expensive vintage pornography I carefully curated to match your supposed taste. The real drives, she tapped her temple. Encrypted and stored on micro SD cards hidden in safety deposit boxes across 3 cities. You stole my entire empire. I saved your entire empire, Lucia corrected. Think about it, Marco. What did Isabella want? Your money, yes. But more than that, she wanted the ledger. With that, she could flip everyone you've ever worked with. Could bring down not just you, but half the criminal organizations in Southern Europe. Realization hit him. She downloaded the dummy files. She downloaded 20 terabytes of vintage pornography organized by decade and ethnicity, Lucia confirmed, grinning. Which means every move she makes based on that data is worthless. Every warrant, every subpoena, every arrest, all based on evidence that doesn't exist. Marco started laughing. He couldn't help it. The sheer audacity. His secretary, his invisible assistant, had executed the most elegant theft he'd ever seen, under his nose, in his own home. You're insane, he said. I prefer thorough. Lucia moved closer, hands finding his chest. I told you, I didn't just watch you for 7 months. I planned for this. Planned for the day someone would try to take you down. I just didn't expect it to be your fiancée. What else did you plan? Escape routes. 4 different safe houses in 4 different countries. False identities. Offshore accounts that can't be traced. She pulled something from her pocket. A small black key. Access to a safety deposit box containing hard copies of the real ledger. Insurance. Marco took the key, feeling its weight. You thought of everything. Not everything. I didn't think you'd kiss me. Lucia's smile was soft now, vulnerable. Didn't think that last night would... He silenced her with another kiss. Slower this time, deeper. When he pulled back, her eyes were dark with want. Focus, she breathed. We need to focus. On what? Revenge. Lucia moved back to the laptop, pulling up a new screen. Isabella thinks she won. She thinks you're in the wind, broke and broken. She's probably planning her victory lap right now. And tonight is the charity gala at the Palazzo Vecchio. The same gala where you met her 4 years ago. The same gala where she's planning to announce your flight from justice and her heroic role in bringing down the serpent. Marco understood immediately. You want to crash it. I want to destroy her in front of everyone who matters. In front of the Interpol brass, the city's elite, the media. Lucia pulled up a guest list. Everyone who's anyone will be there, including Dante. It's suicide. They'll have security everywhere. They'll have security looking for a fugitive in hiding. Not a couple in evening wear with ironclad fake IDs and invitations I forged while you were sleeping this morning. She turned to him. We walk in the front door, Marco. We walk in like we own the place. Because by the end of the night, we will. How? Lucia's fingers flew over the keyboard, pulling up audio files, video feeds, encrypted documents. Because while Isabella was planting evidence and planning your murder, I was recording everything, every conversation, every meeting, every time she and Dante discussed their plan. I have enough to bury them both. Interpol won't care. She's one of them. Interpol will care a lot when they realize their star agent has been planting evidence and committing conspiracy to commit murder. That poisons every case she's ever worked, every conviction she's ever secured. Lucia's eyes gleamed. I'm not trying to save you from Interpol, Marco. I'm trying to make them eat their own. It was brilliant, risky as hell. Exactly the kind of move Marco would have made if he'd had time and resources. We'll need clothes, he said. Already handled. I have a storage unit in Florence with everything we need. Picked up your dry cleaning 4 days ago and never returned it. We have a tuxedo in your size. I have an evening gown in mine. Fake IDs, weapons, even cufflinks. She paused. I wasn't kidding when I said I prepared for war. Marco pulled her close, kissing her forehead. You're terrifying. Thank you. That wasn't a compliment. I know. Lucia grinned up at him. But you're going to need someone terrifying if you want to take down a federal agent and reclaim your empire in one night. She was right. And somewhere in the past 12 hours, between the escape and the revelation, and the desperate intimacy of survival, Marco had started to see her not as a weapon or tool or even savior, but as a partner, an equal, someone who could stand beside him in the fire and not just survive but thrive. Partners? He asked. Lucia's hand found his. Partners. Then let's burn it all down. If you loved this story, beautiful souls, drop a comment telling me what moment hit you hardest. Was it the elevator escape, the gala confrontation, that first kiss? Your engagement fuels these stories. Hit subscribe, smash that like, and I'll see you in the next chapter of dangerous love and deadly betrayal. Until then, stay fierce, stay fearless, and remember, sometimes the person sent to destroy you becomes the only one who can save you.